Hello, and welcome to the Introverted Manager. Today, we will be building so-called column variance chart, which is not natively possible usually in Power BI, right? So we'll have to apply some workarounds, hacks, everything at our disposal to make this happen without any custom visuals. So, this will be the end result, and let's try to build it from scratch. So follow along. You have to set it in certain way for it to work. There are lots of measures involved, but let me walk you through all of it. I will make a new page and we'll be building it from scratch. Okay, so new page. Let's set some background. Oops. Something a bit darker. Bit of transparency. Okay, so we have some contrast. Then let's add line and clustered column chart. Okay, let's add it. And let's add our first measure. But first, because I have millions of records in this data set, it's quite large or medium large, I don't want to display all of the data, right, and slow this down. I will limit all of the data to, let's say, 2 years, right? So I'll take year column, put it into filters on this page, and let me limit it to, let's say, 2024 and 2023. Okay, just as a first step. And the challenge is our chart or our visual will use categorical x-axis. It would have been much easier if it was continuous. With categorical, again, we'll have to take that into account and apply some workarounds to work. So let me first put two columns onto x-axis. Those will be year. And let's see, let's come here, go to date table. And it seems my mouse is inverted. And month's name. Okay, that will be our x-axis. For columns, I will be using running total for quantity column for my sales. This I will go to my measures table, line chart. This is from another project I did, and I will use this running total. And there we have it already, right? For 2 years. However, how do we draw a variance between first date and last date? January 2023 and December 2024. Oh well, settle down. There are lots of steps ahead. However, let's style it a bit so it looks prettier. Let's add some visual border. Let's add some rounded corners, which I personally like to do. Let's add some shadow, although this is quite strong. So let's do outside custom. Let's put 90 here. Still quite strong. Let's do 0, blur 5. Actually, blur can be higher. Distance can be, yes, close. And transparency can be, I don't know, 80. So just a bit of shadow to give it a bit of depth with the background, which, as you can see, we have already. Okay, What else? Besides that, what we want to do is do something about title. So we will call it sales RT, and we make it bold, and doesn't really look good, so we will add a bit of padding on all sides, or a lot of padding on all sides, so it looks nicer. Okay, and let's make it a bit bigger, the title. Okay, got it. Now, as you can see here, I'm also having this subtitle under the title itself, which shows you selected period. So let's do that as well. And for this, we'll have to make some measures. It will be the first measure that we will make here. So I numbered them because there are lots of measures. So you can follow this pattern or up to you. However, what we're doing here is we're catching minimum date, which is displayed on screen, maximum date, which is displayed on screen. Then I'm formatting it in certain way and transforming to text, because format is transforming to text. And the format is, or it's easier to see here, January 23. Same for min and max date. And I'm concatenating it into a text string between this date and this date. So this is our first measure. Let's go to new page and let's add it to our visual. Let's turn on subtitle and let's select our measure, which is 1.0 subtitle label. And as we can see here, it already displays correct dates that we have here. Besides that, let's style chart itself a bit. I think it's easier to do in the beginning before we start setting up everything else. So what I want to do is I want to remove axis labels. So for this, we go to x-axis and we remove title. We go to y-axis and we remove title as well. Okay. And I want to remove grid lines, right? Right. So we'll remove horizontal, vertical for sure, we don't need. However, yeah, let's make it cleaner. Let's make it as clean as possible. I like minimalistic designs. So we will also remove values for y-axis. Okay. And let's change the color for columns. You will know later why. Let's make it gray, 50% gray. Okay, actually it already looks much better than in the beginning. Okay, as the next step, we will actually need to add some extra space on top of our columns, right? Because as you can see, there is not much space between subtitle and columns themselves. And we still need to draw our lines and draw our variance label, right? For this, as the first step, we need to calculate maximum value. So this is the measure that you will need to make. And here what I'm doing is I'm using max or iterator with 2 x's. I'm running total quantity measure and finding maximum value within selected values in our visual. And just to be sure, also catching or taking into account all of the other visual filters that we might have on this page. And on top of this, I'm adding 25%. So there is some space on top of it. Don't add it yet anywhere. We'll need it later. Okay, let's move on to the next one. If we look at this one, there are vertical lines and there is horizontal line, right, on top of the columns. We'll need to draw those. Those are drawn using different measures. So let's move on to the next measure then to see how to make it happen. Vertical connector line. We're using our measure that we built previously. Okay, we'll come back to that later. We also need to catch current year months. But what we have here is separately year and the months. Problem with that is because we have categorical x-axis, it creates some problems. To go around those problems with calculations, you need some unique column which will represent your year and months. So I created one. And let me go to date table, and you will need to make one as well if you don't have it. And I've created simple year months column. Calculated one, you can make it in Power Query, doesn't matter. Also, make sure that you actually use this technique with multiplying by 100. Reason being is that you also need to sort properly. When you run your calculations, you need to make sure that your months are sorted properly. If you just concatenate year and months, in that case, you will get, for example, 2024 1 instead of 2024 01. And that will mess up your sorting and therefore will mess up your calculation. So make sure to multiply by 100, and that way you will get 01, 02, 09, 10, 11, 12. I can show you in my date table how it looks. Yes, this is the result of that calculation. Okay. When you have this column, let's come back to measure. Let's see. So we're catching that unique value. And then we need to calculate first date within our visual chart and the last date within our chart. That's what we're doing here. I'm catching minimum date and maximum date. And make sure to use all selected, just to be sure that you're catching the context. Okay, and then I'm having if statement, right? Because we need to draw vertical lines just for the first month and for the last month. We don't want to have them in between. So we have to have condition for that. If current year months, right? We will add that measure later to the visual itself, and therefore it will have the context to work with. And therefore, when calculation is, or when measure is ran within certain year months, and it will be run within certain year months, if it's first or last, then we are returning that extra space value. Otherwise, we're just returning blank, not to have anything there. Okay. Once you have this measure, let's try adding it where it's supposed to be. And for this, to draw vertical lines, we will use error bars. Okay, we will not be using, for example, you could have added it here to line y-axis. We can try, but and see pretty much nothing. However, if we add it into error bars, and you have to select here running total quantity, okay, you have to enable it, and you have to add it into upper bound, this measure. Let's do that and see how it works. Okay, so we have those lines. However, they still don't look well. Let's remove markers. We don't need them. We don't need tooltips as well. And for bars, we need to remove border. Okay, so now they look connected. Good. And actually, for now, we can leave it be this way. Let's move on to the next one. Now we need to draw a horizontal line, right, between the two. For this, again, you'll need to create this measure. We'll still refer into 1.1 measure, which checks extra space. We're still catching year months. This is our unique value. Those we'll be using a lot. Once again, we're catching first months and the last months displayed on screen. So we need to draw a line between those two, right? And again, if it's more or equals first month, return value, return our line, or return blank. Okay. However, actually, thinking logically about that, because we're displaying variance between first and last value, there shouldn't be cases where it actually goes beyond first and last months, right? So maybe this condition isn't actually needed and we can deprecate it. But anyways, for now, let's leave it as is. And let's add it to the visual itself. In this case, not as error bar, but let's add it as a line. In this case, it will work because it's horizontal line. This is what line chart is for. Okay, I've added it, but it's not here. Let's figure out what happened there. So let me find it here in lines, and let's see, what color is it? Ah, it was off. It's that easy. Okay, now that it's on, let's style it similarly to our error bar lines, right? So they feel connected. For this, well, first we need to use the same color, which maybe this, maybe. And we need to make it narrower. And actually it already looks almost the same, if not the same. So let's move on to the next measure. This one is the most complex one, and you will get why. So we need to display middle label, and I will go to the measure in a second. I just want to explain you why it's the most complex. We have certain amount of months, right, displayed here. Because I'm displaying full years, the issue that I had is it has even amount of months, right? How do I display it in the middle if I have 24 or 12 months, right? How do I display it between 6th and 7th months? I cannot actually. I have to choose, I have to calculate. But also there are cases where there are an uneven amount of months. If there are 10, or if there are 11, okay, you have to display it on the sixes. Okay, for this, maybe I'm overthinking it, and maybe it could have been done simpler. However, that's the solution I came up, which worked for me. In this case, we'll not be displaying it between 12th and 13th month. We will be displaying it on the 12th month. So it will not be right in the middle, but it will be close to the middle. Okay, let's see the measure itself. Again, this almost every measure starts with this, right? So let's move on. What I'm doing after is I'm doing a table of all of the year months which are present on the chart. So from January 2023 to December 2024. So I'm just making a table. Then I want to rank them, right? So I'm taking the table, I'm adding a column called at rank, and I'm using year months as a base for ranking. I'm sorting the same column, and that's why also it's important to add it in the right way so you have proper sorting. I'm sorting it in ascending order, right? From smallest to biggest, highest to late, from earliest to latest. And I'm using dense ranking. That's important. You don't want gaps, because in that case, it will affect where your middle is displayed. Where your middle is displayed. Okay. So you get that virtual column with rankings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. In our case, up to 24 or 23 if it starts from 0. Now, in that table, I'm taking minimum and maximum. Okay, 0, 23. Stay with me. That's the only solution that worked for me. I am taking or calculating middle rank. So I'm dividing, or first I'm doing sum of min and max, okay? And then I'm dividing by 2. So I get some number. Probably I'm getting some number with decimal, or I might be getting number with decimal. So I need to handle this case as well. Right. Okay. So the next step, I'm rounding down. Here you can round up if you want your label to display more to the right and choose column to the right. If you want to choose column to the left, in case it cannot be placed in the middle, then you round down. So I'm rounding down to 0 decimal points. I want integer because I want to map it to columns. So I need integer. And in the next variable, and it will come handy once we put measure into the chart, and it will start running through months. And maybe name isn't the best, but here I'm finding the rank of currently selected months while going through calculations. Okay. Next, what I'm returning is I have if statement. I'm taking absolute values. I don't care about signs here. I think it's actually easier to show with an example. So January 2023, it will be 0 in our rank, or let's say first in our rank. Our middle, because we have 2024 or 24 months, will be 11, right? Okay. 1 minus 11 will be minus 10. Because it's ABS, it will be 10. Oh, let's do it like this. It will be 10. Is 10 less or equals 0.5? No, it's not. Since it's not, I'm returning blank. And that process happens for each and every month until we arrive to a place where this tolerance matches. So once we arrive to 11th month, 11 minus 11 minus 11 will be 0, which, well, translates into 0. Is 0 less or equals to 0.5? Yes. So we're returning dot there. And we will be working with that dot to style it the way we need to. It feels overly complicated. It might be overly complicated. If you will figure out the easier way, please let me know. So for now, I will delete this and let's add it to the chart. We will add it. We will add it above line y-axis. Middle label. Okay, and as you can see, we already have orange dot appearing here. Now we need to style it a bit, right? Let's go to markers. Okay, middle label. And despite you seeing here that markers are disabled, you still see the dot, right? Okay, what do we do with this? Let's go to lines. Let's select middle label and let's turn it off. Okay. However, we still need the labels, right? The variance, all of that. Let's turn off data labels. And that's what we will see. We don't want that. So let's turn it off for running total quantity. Okay. Let's turn it off for our horizontal connecting line. We don't want that either. So the one that we have left is our middle label. And let's maybe style it a bit already. So background, we have white. No. Let's do it darker. Oh, I'm styling the wrong one. Let's do middle label. Let's do darker. 25%. Okay. The title, we can, well, I used variance symbol or delta symbol. So let's copy it and use it here. I think that would be the easiest. So I'll go to this one and copy it from here. I just like how minimalistic does it look. Okay, so we have it here. Let's go back to data labels. Let's go back to our delta. And why are we not seeing it? Reason is that here in the content we have custom, right? So we should switch to series name. Now we see it, but we see it on one line. We probably want it to be more vertical. So let's go to layout and let's switch to multi-line. Okay. It's already vertical. Now, what does it actually display? I think it displays the value of that middle or of that column, which is its above. What we want to display instead is absolute and percentage variance between first and last columns. So let's make measures for that as well. So this is the next measure, and here it's quite simple. We're getting maximum year months within selected dates. We're getting minimum year months within selected dates. And we're calculating first and last values for writing total quantity for those dates. So this is what happens here. And then this will be absolute variance. So we're subtracting them, last value and first value. Let's add it into the label. Okay. So we'll add it as value. Okay, let's switch, instead of middle label, we'll switch to ABS variance, and we see number updated. Maybe you want it to be white to be visible better. And maybe we can do the same to the symbol as well. Okay, and maybe a bit bigger. And same to this. Okay, and display units. Well, this is actually up to you, whether you want to apply dynamic formatting or automatic formatting here, up to you. I'll just leave it or put it to none. And we want to calculate percentage difference, right? So for this, we need another measure. For the most part, it's the same as absolute variance measure. So this part is absolutely the same. Now, the difference is here, where first we're subtracting first and last values, and then we're dividing by first value to get variance between them. Also, make sure, once you're done with that you format it as percentage, and maybe put less decimal points. You don't want to have too many. Okay, let's add it to the visual. Or let's add it to the label. Right. For this, we will use detail because we want to display it separately. And let's select it here, percentage. Okay. Let's switch display units to none here. And now we see percentage. What we also want to do, maybe make font bigger. If you want, you can switch places between absolute variance and percentage variance. This is up to you. But what we want also to color it conditionally. If it's positive variance, as green. If it's negative variance, as red. Right. So let's make a measure for that as well. It's quite simple. It's an if statement. If variance is more than 0, and again, in our case, because it's running total, probably in most cases you will be getting positive variance. However, if it's not running total, it could be negative. Or actually, if your business is not doing well and you have, if you're not calculating quantity, but rather you're calculating revenue, it could be negative, and therefore in the end you could your value could be less than in the beginning. Anyways, I'm going into the weeds. Return green or return red. And let's apply this to, let's go back to labels, detail, and let's apply to color property. Select field value, go to bar chart, variance. Okay. And you can see already, and let's make it bigger so it's more prominent. It's already conditionally color coded. The one thing though, I don't like the contrast between those. So let's make background a bit brighter, or maybe let's add some transparency. Oh, no. Okay, actually, let's make it fully dark. That way, there's a bit more contrast. It's a shame we cannot actually make text bold or etc. We don't have that many options here for text formatting. So we have what we have. So I like this already. Maybe, yes, few more styling things that I would add here. Let's go back to markers. Let's select our delta. Let's turn on show for the series, and let's switch it to dash. Okay. Let's make it bigger. And let's switch color to the same color. Right. So now we have sort of visual indication here. And as the last thing, and I think we're more or less done with this. And as the last thing, let's add shade area. Because that way, and I see, if you can, as you can see, turn it off, but it's too dark. Let's make it brighter. Actually, let's turn it off for places we don't need. Let's leave it for horizontal connector only. And let's make it almost transparent. So we barely see it. Perfect. But as you can see, visually, it makes it seem like more connected. You can see that first and last points are connected. And that's how you make it. I think we're done. Subscribe and see you in the next one.